Session 3, Unlocking Your Potential.
When we talk about human potential, have you ever wondered what accounts for the huge disparity in results and performance between one person and another? You know, a person who's making $250,000 a year is not 10 times smarter or better than a person who's making $25,000 a year. Why is there 10 times the difference in income? And you go all the way up the ladder to a person who's making $2.5 million a year. Is that person 100 times better, smarter than the person making $25,000 a year? Impossible. In a recent study of IQs, they picked 1,000 men and women out of the population and tested them for IQ. They found that the top person in that 1,000 selection was only 2.5 times smarter than the bottom person in that selection of IQs. Only 2.5 times the disparity, and that's probably true over the whole population. So what accounts for this great difference? Well, we talk about human potential. We come down to a very simple formula that I came up with some years ago that probably explains it a little bit. The formula starts off with what we call IA, which is inborn attributes. That's the qualities, the intelligence, the ability, the temperament, the things that you're born with that you can't really change very much, plus acquired attributes. Now, acquired attributes are very important. Those are your education, your training, your skill, your experience, knowledge, wisdom, and so on. Multiplied times A, which is your attitude, equals individual human potential, or individual human performance, or individual human results, if you like. Now, of these three, inborn attributes are largely fixed at birth. Acquired attributes can be changed, but it takes a while to change them, although sometimes they can be changed very rapidly. One valuable piece of information can dramatically change your effectiveness. But attitudes can be increased or decreased dramatically in seconds. We talked about that before, and a very powerful way to instantaneously improve your attitude is to say to yourself, I believe something wonderful is going to happen to me today. As we said before, our expectations about outcomes determines our attitude. In other words, if you expect things to turn out well, you're going to have a positive attitude. If you expect things to turn out negatively, you're going to have a negative attitude. And the wonderful thing is you can manufacture your own expectations. I mean, you can expect whatever you want. You can expect good things, you can expect negative things, and chances are you won't be disappointed. Where do our expectations come from? Our expectations come from our beliefs, if you like, and our values. These are the core or the central motivating factors in our personality, our beliefs and values. And this brings us to an understanding of human potential. It means that basically our attitude is the outward expression of what is going on internally, consistent with the mental laws that we talked about. And with regard to beliefs, each of us has a bundle of beliefs way down deep inside, which psychologists call the self-concept. Now, the self-concept, or the discovery of it, has been considered by many to be the most important single breakthrough in understanding human performance in the 20th century, and I personally agree. The self-concept is like, if you wanted to use a military analogy, is the command center. Or if you wanted to use a technological analogy, it is the central program of your basic computer. It is a bundle of beliefs, values, attitudes, feelings, ideas, and so on, which are stored away down inside, which are a result of virtually every experience you've ever had in your life. And some researchers say that the self-concept begins to form even before birth. But this self-concept, once it is in place, precedes, predicts, and determines your levels of effectiveness and performance in every area of your life. Your self-concept becomes the command center or the master program. The self-concept, or this bundle of beliefs, then determines what you will say, what you will do, how you will act, how you feel and react, and so on. What does it mean? It means that all improvements in your external life, all changes in your reality begin with a change in the self-concept. Let me give you an understanding of how it means. Here's a very simple graph. We talk about human potential. We say the average person uses 10% or less of their potential. According to the research, it's probably much less. Stanford Brain Institute in Santa Clara, California, estimates that it's probably closer to 2%. But we'll be generous and we'll say the average person is using 10%. It means that in the best of cases, the average person, you and I, have 90% of our potential untapped. One of the great philosophers, Oliver Wendell Holmes, said the great tragedy of the average person is that they go to their grave with their music still in them. They're still functioning on far, far less of their potential. So this is human potential. We find there's a direct relationship between human potential and the self-concept. That since our self-concepts, or our estimates of ourselves, if you like, are usually far lower than they need to be, our level of performance and effectiveness is far lower too. And we know that our self-concept is largely subjective. What does that mean? It means that the self-concept, what we believe to be true about ourselves, is really not based in reality. It's based on information that we've taken in. People who win lotteries are often flat broke 2 or 3 years later. They just burn the money because the money is far beyond their self-concept. If you go 10% or more below your self-concept level of income, you find yourself scrambling. You work harder. You work longer. You think more creatively. You look at different ways to increase your income or second income opportunities. The only way to improve any part of your life, including your income, is to raise your self-concept level of income by beginning to think about yourself continually in terms of earning more money. If you want to lose weight, the only way you can lose weight is what? Is to think thin, by beginning to think of yourself as a thinner person. If you want to become a more popular, a more loving, a happier person, a healthier person, you have to begin to think over and over about those things until they become part of your new self-concept. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. It's an essential part of programming your mind for success. Your overall self-concept is determined by the average of your self-concepts in all the areas that you consider important. Now, your self-concept is made up of 3 critical parts. The first part of the self-concept is the self-ideal. The self-ideal is yourself as an employee, how much you like yourself as a boss, how much you like yourself as a money earner, a professional speaker, an athlete, and so on. How much you like yourself, your level of self-esteem, your overall emotional feeling about any area of your life determines your performance and effectiveness in that area. Wonderfully enough, since you become what you think about, your self-concept is malleable, your self-esteem can be built by repeating over and over again, I like myself. 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 The more you say, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, the more you repeat that over and over again, the more your self-esteem goes up. The more your self-esteem goes up, the more your overall self-concept goes up. When your overall self-concept goes up, you perform better at everything else that you attempt. That every single time you say, I like myself, 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 it's like pumping yourself up psychologically. Everything that happens that causes your self-esteem to go up causes you to perform better. Everything that happens that causes your self-esteem to go down causes you to perform worse, make more mistakes, be unhappier, and so on. Now, a critical point about liking yourself, about self-esteem and self-liking, is that number one is you can never like or love anybody else more than you like or love yourself. That your level of self-esteem is the determinant of the quality of the relationships you have with others. And number two is you can never expect anybody else to like or respect you more than you like or respect yourself. That how much you like and respect yourself determines their attitudes toward you. Every single school of psychology today is coming to agreement on the fact that how much you genuinely like and accept yourself as a valuable and worthwhile human being has an effect on everything that happens to you. How much you like yourself. And what you can do is you can improve your self-esteem, but then I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. Well, this brings us to the question of where does self-esteem, where does the self-concept come from? And we found that self-concept, if anything, self-concept is malleable in that you are not born with a self-concept. Is that you're not born with any idea of yourself. You're not born with self-image or self-esteem, that you're born in a way as pure potential. Probably the best way to put it. The average person comes into the world as pure potential and has no self-concept. That everything you are today, every feeling that you have, every attitude or value, you had to learn over the course of your lifetime. We also know that the child comes into the world with a very high need for love and touching. And a tremendous amount of research indicates that we need a lot of love and touching all of our lives, but especially in our formative years, because as a child, we learn who we are, how valuable we are, whether we're important, intelligent, attractive, lovable, funny. We learn all of these things by the way our parents treat us. If our parents, our siblings, our aunts and uncles, but especially our parents, treat us like we're really important kids, then we grow up thinking that we're really important. If our parents do not, then something else happens. We know that the first few years of life are the most important in developing the self-concept. That a child starts off at 0 when the child is born with no idea of who she is or who he is or how valuable they are, and in the first second, driving down that healing concrete deep into the foundation of our personality. Remember, children need love like roses need rain. Children that are deprived of love often die of love starvation. It's a disease called marasmus. Now, what else do we know about children? We know that children come into the world with 2 remarkable attributes. The first is that they're fearless. Children are born with no fears. They're not afraid of anything except falling and loud noises. And this is expressed in the attitude, I can. Children come into the world believing they can do anything. And anybody who's ever raised a child to the age of 3 or 4 or 5 knows you have to spend those first few years stopping them from killing themselves because they're little kamikaze pilots, because they're not afraid of anything. The second attribute is they come into the world completely spontaneous. They say what they want, they do what they want. They are completely uninhibited. They just are completely unafraid. They do anything that they want. And this is expressed in the attitude, I don't have to. I don't have to. If you ever try to control a child, you'll find that the attitude of a young child, the first thing they say, we begin to develop negative habit patterns. Negative habit patterns are conditioned responses to stimuli. Negative habit patterns develop very early in life. They're developed as a result of a repetition of fear and pain over and over again. They're developed as the result of destructive criticism, physical punishment, and so on. Very early in life, we begin to develop two major manifestations which follow us throughout our lives and, more than anything else, inhibit our potential as adults. The first is what is called the inhibitive negative habit pattern. The inhibitive negative habit pattern is learned when the child is told over and over again, don't. Get away from there. Stop. Leave that alone. And the child is punished. Whenever the child tries something new or gets into something or smells something or pours something over or breaks something accidentally, the parent blows up and gets angry and upset. You see, the child is driven by an insatiable curiosity to explore his or her world. And what happens is when they do explore it and they get into something, they tip something over, if the parent overreacts and spanks the child, we feel like withdrawing and getting away from the event. And the fear of failure is the major reason for failure in adult life. It's the major reason why we hold back from fulfilling our potentials. As a matter of fact, all negative habit patterns are experienced in the physical body. That you can tell a negative habit pattern because you actually feel it in your physical body. The inhibitive negative habit pattern, the fear of failure, the I can't, is experienced first of all in the solar plexus. You ever have an occasion where you have to speak in front of a group, or you have to go into a performance review, or you have to make a cold call? First of all, the solar plexus tightens up. If the fear situation continues, you start to breathe harder, and your heart starts to beat faster, your respiratory rate, and sometimes you get a headache, like a migraine headache in the front of your head. Sometimes your throat will tighten up and you won't be able to speak. You'll go completely dry. Sometimes you'll get so tense and so frightened that you'll have to run and go to the bathroom. These are all manifestations. There's no physical danger, but there's a psychological danger, a conditioned response. And whenever we feel these things, the natural tendency is to back away from the situation that's causing them. And of course, type A behavior is a compulsive, an obsessive-compulsive need to somehow please somebody with no standards of performance so that you can never accomplish it. The fear of rejection drives us. It makes us very, very sensitive to the opinions of other people. We do things that other people want. We don't do things that we want. We're always trying to please others. We have a preoccupation or a concern with the opinions and feelings and attitudes of others to the point where we deny our own needs. Now, the fear of rejection is felt down the back half of the body. If you divide the body in half, it's felt right down the back half of the body. The first place you start to feel the fear of rejection is usually in the shoulders and in the neck. You start to feel stiff and sore and tense. Sometimes when you have a lot to do, you'll feel tremendous stress in the lower back. The muscles will start to pull in the lower back. Sometimes it'll manifest itself in phlebitis and varicose veins. Very often it can give you very bad headaches in the back of the head because the carotid arteries, which carry blood up into the head, the muscles around them constrict, and the amount of blood flow to the head slows down, and you feel this pounding headache in the back of your head. These two fears, the compulsive, or these two negative habit patterns, the compulsive and the inhibitive, which are the result of destructive criticism, the great destroyer of personalities, plague us all our lives. Now, the wonderful thing about these is because they are learned habits, we can unlearn them. We can overcome the fear of failure that holds us back. We can overcome the fear of rejection that causes us to do things that please other people rather than pleasing ourselves by working on our own self-esteem. Because there is an inverse relationship between self-esteem and the basic negative habit patterns. Is the more you like yourself, the less you fear failure. The more you like yourself, the less you fear rejection. The more you like yourself, the less you fear anything. And if you continue to repeat, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, over and over again. If you continue to say this, eventually, over time, your self-esteem goes up higher. Self-esteem goes down, their ability to perform goes down too. If you destructively criticize a person often enough, long enough, and hard enough, they reach the point where they won't try anything at all. They become what we call hypersensitive. And a hypersensitive adult is a person who cannot take criticism from anybody. A hypersensitive adult is a person who is very, very tense and anxious if you even suggest that they're not doing the right thing. If you have to deal with a hypersensitive adult, the key is to sit them down and remember 4 things. Number 1, always begin with praise. Number 2 is protect the person's self-esteem at all costs. Number 3 is discuss the performance, not the person. Talk about the behavior rather than the person. And number 4 is it number 4? Number 4 is to focus on the future versus the past. Focus on what is going to be done differently in the future rather than what has happened in the past. Why is that? A very simple reason is because a person cannot control the past. Not being able to control the past, any criticism over what they've done in the past causes them tremendous stress and frustration, which will make the people around you like, love, accept, and respect themselves, and you'll create a peak performance environment. It is the starting point to great success and achievement in life. So say over and over to yourself, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself.